Have you ever pondered this? We can connect across oceans from our own beds, yet we are facing a literal loneliness epidemic. The more our awareness grows, the darker and more isolating the world seems to become. Some even wander the night's shadows, waiting for whispers of the long gone just to find a tangible shred of memory in the universe. My name is Dakota, friends, and I'm not here to prove the supernatural is real or to tell you how to live. I am here to offer a wake-up call. I've witnessed fascinating things, but instead of grasping at threads, asking if ghosts or UFOs are out there, maybe the question we should be asking is, are we truly unknown? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dakota Franson, and welcome. I believe this is now, episode 9? Kind of hard to believe that we made it this long. But then again, I suppose that's what happens when one finds themselves in a transition period and not really a whole lot of resources or personal connections close to them willing to listen to the full-on ramblings of a crazy man. So what does that crazy man do? He initiates a new podcast, syncs it up to his business, and lets his thoughts run wild, and he lets the universe decide its fate. It's not such a bad thing. It's a unique experience to be able to simply step up and share your story. That's at least been my experience. And in a lot of ways, how do I put this? There's been moments in this journey where I personally started to think and feel that my journey, my voyage throughout all of this, from my early days to when I started ghost hunting as a teenager, to all the entrepreneurial stuff that came about with it, to everything else in between. In a sort of weird way, and this was actually a discussion I just had with my therapist earlier today, part of me can't help but feel or wonder that because the usual methods of inebriation for someone with a traumatic past like mine were virtually unacceptable without pretty much guaranteeing to make the situation worse. Getting drunk, getting high, things of that nature. There might be some smart asses like, what about sex? Well, I'll say this. It's not like the opportunity wasn't there. It's just the times when I tried to be a man whore, be a player, I essentially try to shut myself off. Let's just say even the ladies I was involved with saw through the act. they knew that's not who I was. Because even in those states where I was trying to act like I didn't give a shit, I was still too much of a gentleman. That was the general consensus. But I suppose it comes down to one of those situations where sometimes we find people that we're supposed to be with to understand for a season, to make us reflect on our own life paths, our own choices, so that maybe, just maybe, we have an opportunity to grow. And some of these ladies, we still keep in touch because a lot of us were part of a lot of the same support groups for entrepreneurs who realize that that road is lonely as hell. Basically, much like some of the PTSD trauma support groups I've been a part of. The whole purpose of the mission was to just get people to realize they're not as alone, but finding people who genuinely understand the path, how lonely, how much sacrifice, trying to prosper through it all requires. It essentially renders one lonely in a world where everybody still tries to fit a predetermined mold that's been pretty much dead since the 1940s of societal expectations. You know, get out of high school, go to college, get married. Let's face it. Find a job that you can somewhat tolerate. Have kids, die. Let's face it, that mold does not work anymore. And to the very core of this message, of this show, it stands to reason that the very question, the very title of this program is perhaps resonating with so many people right now. So many of us who are lost in the confusion, feeling like the world has gone even more insane. The question is, are we truly unknown, or are we all just so damn dizzy from the tornado of events that seem to be trying to hit us every other fucking week that it feels like we're alone because no part of our bodily system has been able to stabilize for more than 5 minutes without something new coming up. And it's not always a bad thing. In fact, I want to share something that happened just yesterday for me. As some of you know, there's been some relationship patterns that have been going on, and if that particular individual happens to listen to these messages, I'm not trying to exploit us in any way, shape, or form. This is just me trying to relate to an audience who probably needs to feel like, hey, we're not alone. Just yesterday, as like I said, some of you may know there's been some personal matters, personal rough patches, if you will, that have affected my mindset somewhat. And in a lot of ways, it has resulted in me trying to kick back up some of my old patterns, to blaze through certain business ventures and explore things that I was contemplating but hadn't quite started up on yet, just to try to keep my mind busy. But during the days where I did not have my regular civilian job to help displace myself somewhat from the mindset, or not having the time to explore a local hunt or look into a UFO sighting now that the weather's getting to be a little nicer. The situation that has been unfolding it's weighed heavily on me. So I decided to go into town with family, not really planning anything special, no grand ventures, no special trip, just doing some running around, maybe hitting a few stores, just to get out of the house for a little bit and let somebody else worry about the gas tank. Because yes, I do have my own car, but a Ford Expedition is a bit of a gas guzzler. The main thing that is saving me is that the previous owner was a halfway decent mechanic, so the mileage is a little bit better than what it's supposed to be. Just a little. But I digress. And yesterday, I was wanting to try to support someone very dear to me in their own ventures. How they are trying to use a little bit of public exposure through TikTok live streams and things like that to build up their own confidence, to make themselves feel more comfortable going on camera, even though anybody else who knows them, who's just seen them, would probably back me up in saying they don't really have much reason to be shy. They are naturally beautiful. And I can, testify from the highest mountain peaks I can find that they are truly as beautiful on the inside as they are on out. A very rare type of person. Flaws and all. And with the turmoil that's been going through our own personal rough patch, it has been affecting me heavily, and thankfully, had I not been back in therapy for a little bit now, I probably would not handle it as well. So, being that it was my day off, I decided to go into town with family. And we just did a little running around, hit up a few thrift shops. And there was this one particular store. It's called Desert Industries. It's just a little thrift store run by the church. Not a bad little spot. And I was with my mother and we were walking around, and my mother calls me over because she was in the aisles with like home decorations. And she finds this scroll. Now for those of you who've traveled, who've been to parts of like China, Thailand, maybe Japan, I here has something similar. You may be familiar, they're little decorative. Usually you can find them for not very much at a tourist stand, in little shops. My mother found one for Thailand, and she rolled it out, she showed it to me, and it had pictures of the tuk-tuk rides, to even the elephant sanctuary I visited while I was over there, to the markets. A lot of the places, I've done every single place that was on that scroll. I had personally been to. And that trip was among one of my favorites. And I can speak for everybody who was in my group with me. Everybody would agree. that the highlight of that trip was when we got to go to the Phuket Elephant Sanctuary, if I remember correctly. I think that's what it's called. And we got to play with them, we got to feed, and we got to bathe the elephants. We got to get up close to these beautiful creatures. I managed to convince one of my friends that was on the trip with me to take a photo of me next to one of the elephants so people online would believe that, yes, Dakota is a big motherfucker. Such happy times, my heart started to flutter. And my mother, to her credit, all she was trying to do was find something meaningful. But in that particular moment, as I started to feel the rush, the memories, the happiness that I felt on that trip, you see, ladies and gentlemen, I have been slowly preparing for another trip. I got my passport all sorted. I set up a little savings pocket in my company account. So that way, none of my personal expenses would be affected. It would just sit there, be ready to go. And maybe, if I play my cards right, I can use it as a tax write-off. But rather than feel the joy of happy memories, I started to cry, and not tears of joy because I missed my dear friends, which I still do. If any of them happen to be watching or listening, I still miss you. I could not help but cry. I felt sorrow, grief even.
Still here, chasing dreams and fighting fear. But I see your smile in every dawn. It's how I find the strength to carry on. If I could, I'd be right there, laying love down where you are. But all I've got's this prayer tonight, and a heart that feels you from afar. So I'm sending yellow roses, babe, to wake you where you dream. Let their color paint the morning the way your love paints me. You're the light that keeps me steady, even when the miles pull us apart. You're farther than my arms can reach, but closer than my heart. Your kindness turned my darkness gold. You made a broken man feel whole. Every word you ever said still plays inside my head. I thank the stars for what we found. Even oceans can drown the sound of your laughter through the phone that makes this house feel like a home. So I'm sending yellow roses, babe, to wake you where you dream. Let their color paint the You're the light that keeps me steady, even when the miles pull us apart. You're farther than my arms can reach, but closer than my heart. Someday I'll cross that line, no distance left to close. I'll hold you through the sunrise and never let you go. But till that moment comes to be, I'll send this love across the sea. Your spirit, just how much you mean to me. You're the reason I keep going. You've been with me from the start. You're miles away, my angel, but closer, closer than my heart. Yeah, you're miles away, my angel, but closer.
Because when I started to tell someone who I care very deeply about and still do, or perhaps I feel it, perhaps I can say with full honesty that I care about them more than anybody else in this world, I felt pain, sorrow. Because when I told this person I was planning on taking a trip to come see them, because it is a bit of a long distance situation, that's when they told me that they had been hurting, that they had been in a mental health crisis for months, and they were wanting to give me space to protect themselves in the event that I met someone else and would leave them. And for those of you who have been following this show so far, you probably can figure out why. And the ladies are probably saying, can you blame her, Dakota? No, I don't. And I can try to defend myself with the nuances, but I cannot. But this is not some sort of courtroom drama where I can sit here and defend myself day in and day out and somehow magically clear everything up. Someone I cared about was affected deeply by my actions. And they took steps to protect themselves. In the event history went to repeat. They told me that I deserve to be freer, to have all these, to be able to explore, to get out and see the world and maybe find someone better. But the truth is, with this particular person, someone who I've referred to as my starlight angel, as my poetic declarations of love, truthfully, this was someone I've never felt more freer. Even when we were just barely meeting, getting to know one another, I somehow felt safer with them than I felt with my own parents. And for those of you who have been around since the first episodes, you can probably argue that my parents didn't exactly set a very high bar, but I digress. I felt true, I felt sincere, I felt like I could finally put down the armor, the act of being some stoic hero, some carefree bravado, and I could just be me. And no, I don't know why I'm doing a voice, making myself sound like Frenchie from The Boys. It's just, I just record these as they come to me. A little bit of humor to alleviate the pressure that I'm feeling in my chest right now as I'm telling this. Let me put it this way. I don't exactly recall if I specified this, but as some of you may know, my mother once asked me when the truth about what my father had been doing to one of my sisters came out, if he had assaulted me. And the truth is, I don't remember. I've discussed the possibility with my therapist, and there was two main things they came to say. The first, which was agreed upon by police, doctors, former naval officers, soldiers, some of which who knew my father. The first consensus was, Dakota, it's probably for the best that you don't remember. But the second consensus was that, honestly, I had a lot of the personality quirks that came with survivors of that type of abuse. Certain protectiveness. And believe me, that tension comes up in regards to my niece. When certain things her mother says, or certain things that her father tried to pull, strike at certain chords. Let's just say my niece, if absolutely it came down to it, my niece already knows for a fact that she has her own personal Incredible Hulk willing to smash through whoever's about to hurt her. And I won't lie, there were situations that were starting to get a little heated to where I've had to separate people. And I physically looked at the people getting overwhelmed and said, you want to start smacking somebody around, smack somebody who can take the hit, who can fight back. Was it the best call to make? Probably not. But I'd much rather feel a few bumps and bruises and be completely fine than to not doing something when a baby is about to be hurt beyond repair. And as you can probably imagine, for those of you who are a little bit more well-versed when it comes to like UFO-related events, memory regression, things like that, realizing that you likely have suppressed memories from a traumatic childhood makes it very hard to dig into potential past life situations. Memory fog from potential abduction scenarios when you cannot honestly rule out the psychological arguments that some have made. And I've stated those clearly on this very show. And it's honestly moments like that that made this rough patch that much more difficult, because immediately my system started to go into panic when my love wanted to tell me the truth and wanted to sort of step back a little bit just because she was not in a spot to mentally handle things. We had a little bit of a discussion about where things have landed. Admittingly, things were probably not handled the best, but upon some quick reflection in therapy and with some very dear friends of mine, some who stepped forward a little bit when they realized something was wrong with Dakota, I could not deny the fact that love was there, still there, just perhaps feeling a little bit too real for two individuals who clearly needed time to heal themselves in order to move forward, perhaps. I don't know. That story is still being written, so I cannot fully disclose what's going to happen next. I have my hopes, but as much as it seems like I went off the side rails, I hope it illustrates why, when my mother brought up that scroll and I started to feel that sadness, why my system started to feel overwhelmed, because there was a part of me that slowly quieting down as I'm talking about it. That felt like I had started to lose the most amazing person I've ever known. And like I said in the first couple episodes, I was engaged at one point. My feelings for my Starlight Angel, I will say, are perhaps even deeper than I felt for her, than I felt for anybody else. And I have no clue what I'm doing to move forward. Recently, when I realized it was the 16th year anniversary of my very first ghost hunt, something my late grandfather helped put together, that's probably the one person I wish I could talk to right now. And often when you find yourself in these emotional spirals, one of the grounding tricks that they try to teach you in therapy is deep breaths and finding something to ground your senses in your physical environment rather than what is making you anxious. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can smell, 3 things you can hear, things like that. I started to walk away. I could hear my mother starting to apologize because she saw me getting emotional. Even though she did nothing wrong, she just happened to see something that would remind me of a happy time. I had to walk away for a brief moment. Just kind of rub my face, and I started trying to ground myself in the moment, because I did not need to be looking like I was having a mental breakdown in the middle of a thrift store. And suddenly, as I was starting to take inventory of the space around me, I started to see a young lady who I could not help but feel like I knew her. And I'm just like, wait a minute. I know that one. Who is that? And I'm looking, and I'll see her face, and I'm just like, oh my God. Is that? No. I go walk away for a little bit and go into another part of the store. She was working. The young lady I saw, she was working at the time, and she was working in another section of the store. Walking around, I see her. Probably suddenly looking like I'm trying to check her out. I'm not, but I'm just like, where do I know you? I swear, it was just me purely like, where the hell do I know you from? I started to see how she walked. I recognized the sort of couple mannerisms, like, oh my God. My mother comes up, she approaches her, no interaction. My mother didn't notice it, but I did. And I'm just like, Mom, that's her. She's like, what do you mean? This young lady, I had known, my mom and I both knew since she was 5 years old. It was one of my little sister's best friends since they were in kindergarten. Friends on and off. There were some certain things that came up that still need to be addressed apparently, but still, I had seen this young lady grow up. I've seen her around with her mom. And I'm just like, oh my God. Apparently, this young lady, she was able to get 5 minutes off of work. She was caught up in everything she needed to do. She could flag this down. We all hugged, took a few moments to catch up. And I'm just like, oh my God. She's all grown up. And I had heard through the grapevine and finally got to see some recent pictures that she had had a baby of her own. And unfortunately, the father is a bit of a piece of work who, I will say this, the father of this child was enough of a piece of work that the grandfather, his dad, gave full permission to beat the living hell out of him if he ever tried anything to hurt her. And I almost had an opportunity. I almost had a clear shot. Because one day, a couple of years back, I'm just going about my business, heading into work. I see her getting ready to leave. Catch her out of the corner of my eye. I do a double take. And I was like, oh my God, Malia! Hello! You know, just saying hi. Saying hi to someone I've known for a very long time. And this boy is up behind her. He sees me do a double take and he's like, who's that? Who'd you that? Who's that? And I'm just like, give me an opportunity to beat you down right now. I will.
On your wall in the dark, mapping out the distance from the coast to the park. I'm counting pixels just to find where you are, watching the static like a digital star. 7 hours late, but I'm right on time, reading the subtext of a signal in decline. You're a high definition ghost on a screen, the prettiest frequency that I've ever seen. Give me that friction, give me that weight, before the connection begins to hesitate. I'm tired of the bandwidth, I'm tired of the glow. I wanna be where the physical feelings go. Yeah, we're 2,000 miles of the silver line, can see he's looking through the words that you say. A half-second delay on the way that you sway. I reach for the corner where the pixels meet, but the glass is the coldest thing I'll ever feel on the street. Syncing up the watch is just approval when sync. Closer than a heartbeat, but further than you think. One day the resolution will be sharp and true, and there isn't any glass between the room and the view. Oh, give me that friction, give me that weight, before the connection begins to hesitate. I'm tired of the bandwidth, I'm tired of the glow. I wanna be where the physical feelings go. Yeah, we're 2,000 miles of a silver line, living in the gaps of a different time. Bring the screen to life, let the signal burn, waiting for the minute that I finally return. No more flickering, no more blue, just the organic weight of the room and the view. I'm closing the laptop, I'm locking the door. I don't want a ghost, I want something more. In the hybrid slide, in the actual space, I'll finally look at the skin on your face. So give me that friction, give me that weight, before the connection begins to hesitate. I'm tired of the bandwidth, I'm tired of the glow. I wanna be where the physical feelings go. Yeah, we're 2,000 miles of a silver line, living in the gaps of a different time. Bring the screen to life, let the signal burn, waiting for the minute that I finally return. Yeah, I'm waiting for that light to turn green. Disconnect.
Granted, she probably thinks of me as nothing more than her friend's silly, weird older brother, but she was almost like a little sister. And I'm not gonna let that mother put her hands on her like that. Thankfully, he's not in the picture, but there is still a child involved. So my mom and I, we went to ask her, hearing that she's going through a bit of a rough patch. She was just back in the state, currently staying in a hotel room sharing a bed with her mother and the baby. Her expenses being paid for by the church until they can figure out something, get themselves on their feet. We asked her if she happened to need anything, and she said diapers and wipes for the baby. So we ran over to the local Walmart because we figured that was going to be the best spot for her prices. Got one of those big old boxes of diapers, big old thing of wipes. My mother, she saw me checking my phone over and over like I was trying to keep a certain schedule, offering to take me home. And I was just like, no. This is more important. I'm not trying to keep a certain schedule as far as, my sleep timers, even though, because my civilian job has me on overnights, I'm usually a bit of a night owl. I was going to make an exception for this young lady because, well, like I said, in a way she's a lot like a little sister. And as someone who has 11 younger sisters, like I need any more. And trust me, I wish I was joking about that. But it was good. In spite of hearing the things she was going through, honestly found myself feeling a little bit proud of that young lady. She's doing her best to try to be there for that kid, to do right, to be self-reliant. And as much as she said it would be kind of nice to find a guy to help support her, she's trying to do her best to stand on her own. And I gotta give her credit where credit's due. Though it did kind of sound like she was feeling kind of lonely. So I extended a bit of a hand, said, hey, I know you probably don't think much of me as anything more than Russ's goofy older brother, but it seemed like he's a friend, and just want to say my line's open if you want to talk. I told this story to my therapist, and honestly, it seemed like they were kind of glad that I had that moment. And I had to reiterate, I wasn't trying to, swoop in and save the day. Like I said, it was just, I was having a moment where I felt overwhelmed, and as I was trying to get myself calibrated, poof, someone from my past shows up, literally in view. And it was a bit of a reminder that, in spite of what's going on, the main important thing is when you love and care for someone, it doesn't always have to be fireworks and Hallmark movie moments, even though pulling those off from time to time does feel pretty good. Showing love and care for someone, especially when they're in a time of need, even if the best thing you can do is just say, hey, my line's open if you want to talk. Sometimes that's all it takes. In fact, how many times have you ever heard the story of from people who have taken their own lives, that if someone just smiled at them, that was enough to make them think twice, that there was still a little bit of light, there was still a little bit of love. There was a chance to still do some good. But also, as I can imagine everybody who is old enough to be listening to this show can help testify, it's often the motions we take in love that for lack of a better word, it's the emotions that we take in love that often bring us the most confusion. And perhaps more than we care to admit, we make a lot of mistakes. I'm using my personal relationship as a lot of examples, mainly just because it's the most recent. But I also come to realize it was a bit of a pattern. Even though my Starlight Angel swears that I did nothing wrong, maybe it was her way to try to ease the guilt for both of us. I don't know. I'm not going to question it. I had taken time to reflect on the relationship, and I realized there was at least a couple of points I could have handled better. Like I mentioned, the whole concept of the Olivia paradox, for those of you who don't remember, that was essentially a very odd supernatural occurrence that had taken place, which inevitably left me to constantly scanning every romantic interest I've ever had, whether it's a celebrity, someone I actually dated, or just someone I had a little bit of romantic interest in, trying to scan if they were perhaps the mother to a vision of a little girl that saved my life. And on one hand, given that over time there was a lot of very odd supernatural occurrences that lend credibility to the ideas that Olivia, as I named her, may have actually been a physical being rather than just some rather elaborate hallucination my mind came up with. Or perhaps my belief and following and my emotional resonance for that vision became so strong it somehow managed to alter the fabric of consciousness, creating what's essentially called a tulpa. Or as some have speculated, and these individuals have very high credibility in their respective fields, Olivia may have been some sort of extraterrestrial intervention from a family I had in a concurrent lifetime. Something that I could probably explore in a future episode. As sort of maybe a what if type scenario, you know? But as a lot of people pointed out, when you somehow come to think that maybe, just maybe, you found the answer you've been looking for. Because in the search for the Olivia paradox, naturally, being the father of Olivia, last I checked, human beings still needed one other very crucial piece of the biological puzzle to make a child: the mother. So in a lot of ways it was only natural for me to look. And speaking from experience, there's some chance you somehow managed to find said mother, when all the strangeness, all the synchronicities, or even the stars themselves seem to try to help validate that yes, this is it. When the voices in the ether and the ships flying in the sky all seem to light up like crazy, trying to tell you, this is it, you done it. It's very hard not to essentially deify your partner to where they become flawless, that they don't have bad days. And perhaps it was stemming from that fact that I didn't just check in more, ask her how she was feeling. Not just because she seemed like she was going through something, but just in general. Or the times when I did, I'll admit, and I'm not proud of the notion, I was hoping for an ulterior motive for one of our video dates, just to see her face. Not really taking much into consideration that she may have not been in a good spot to do those. That she isn't in a good spot to do those. And that's on me. The second thing I could have done better was when I would show her certain things that I had worked on from my creative pursuits. Maybe a certain scene from a screenplay I was working on, or a certain section of a new book. Try to get her ideas on certain things, and when she would express her thoughts that didn't exactly line up with what I had expected, I honestly would get a little annoyed. And it showed. And yes, she did directly tell me when I would do this. So often when we would have our normal conversations, and I noticed that she would suddenly go quiet without any much indication of whether or not she was like, just say at work and just got busy or something like that, or something else got her attention. I would honestly start finding myself going back through our most recent conversations, and even I would start to realize where, had anybody else overheard or seen those messages, they thought I would have was being an asshole. When in reality, when I would take her considerations into factor, maybe just alter their execution just a little bit. See, like, she had an idea for certain kinds of books that I could publish in my company, publish them mostly as ebooks. I finally took that into consideration, started putting some into production. The only thing I really did different was that I made it to where they would be produced into actual books on top of ebooks, just because I noticed those still sold better. And my company income is expected to go over double it was last year, because I made that choice and I implemented that change. I know it doesn't really sound like much sentiment behind that notion, but she knows how much I've been trying to build this into my own it was my own project, it was my own kingdom, for lack of a better word, and she was genuinely trying to help. And which goes into the third thing. Started to get annoyed because my whole efforts to go into entrepreneurial ventures, those were motivated by the fact that I was trying to build something that was my own, that no one else could screw up. Because anytime I tried to get involved with other things, other paranormal investigation groups, things like that, it's just the absolute drama. And trust me, I wish it was just something like, teenage angst equivalents, cliques arguing over who's more popular. No, it would be the fact that there would be serious criminal activity taking place that I could not be a part of in good faith, and would actively dismantle everything that was built to ensure that that behavior did not prosper. So if I built my own castle, it was by my rules, by my own hand. And it was just simply because if I was at a point where something went wrong, it was strictly on me. And I didn't let too many other people involved because I didn't want it to affect them, but that own protectiveness is probably why they also say working with your significant other is probably not a good idea. Because the human brain has a very nasty tendency to associate negative events with faces, even though the faces themselves may have had nothing to do with it. They just happen to be in the same room. A notion that can also be utilized to build stronger bonds. Why they say if you want to secure a positive attachment on a first date, take your date onto a roller coaster. Because the thrill, the excitement of going on that roller coaster, the adrenaline of it, that it gets associated with you. It's also why trauma bonding is such a big thing, because a group of people goes through something scary, they come through it together. That builds bonds that mark you for life. There's so many moving parts when it comes to love that it's easy to get lost in the noise, to feel like you're not enough. But just because it's so easy to make mistakes, does that mean love is not something worth chasing? Whether it's a love for a certain activity, it's a love for connection, it's romantic love, or even it's just familial love. Are we wrong to want to chase it? Absolutely not. It is one of the most natural human things to feel like we belong, that we're living our best version of ourselves. But even as much as we don't want to admit that we've done something wrong, every now and then we got to take a little bit of an internal audit. We got to check ourselves. Or even if we have someone that's willing to call us out. Again, we may not want to feel like we're doing something wrong. But if you have someone that's willing to call you out, and you know from the bottom of your heart that they're coming from a good place, that they mean well, they want to see you grow, they want to see you thrive, doing your best. And that is one of the best gifts that you can have in this life, ladies and gentlemen. And it's honestly why, when it came to the paranormal, to the entrepreneurial side of things, business, I found myself kind of questioning whether or not these were coming from genuine interests or if they were just a form of socially acceptable addiction. Some of you may have heard of the rat park experiment. And it's often utilized as a case study for addiction. Where if you were to essentially isolate rats, give them a source of clean water and versus contaminated water, more often than not, if the rats felt somewhat isolated, didn't really have much to do, they wouldn't go anywhere near. Let me rephrase because I realize I'm stumbling over my own words. If you gave the rats ways to socialize, toys to play with, activities, make life absolutely perfect for them, they never had to worry about food or anything like that, they would often not even go near the drug-laced water. Yet for the rats that felt isolated, alone, they didn't really connect or have much of a chance to connect. That's when they would go for the drug-laced water. And I feel like for a good chunk of those 16 years that built up to me becoming the specialist of the strange, those foundations were built on the addiction of adrenaline, the dopamine hits, the acknowledgments, and eventually the connections that would come forward because I was building. Because it seemed like I was at the best version of myself, even if it felt like my world was crumbling when I went back home. Those were the moments I managed to actually connect with someone real, build friendships. And I don't know, maybe it's a mix of turning 30, maybe it's me feeling like I had that scare of losing the most important person in my life right now. Maybe I took the therapist advice a little bit more to heart than I realized. Or maybe it's the fact that I feel so overwhelmed by emotion that the only thing that would help me maintain myself through my day was start dancing randomly and suddenly have random strangers applauding me. Or getting caught by the night manager twice on the last day I worked, to start feeling the rhythm of the music, I just had to look at him and say, I'm going to be honest with you, bro. There's kind of some stuff going on at home, and as far as I'm concerned, dancing the stress away is the better alternative, isn't it? And he just looked at me and said, well, yeah, I agree with you, brother. Whatever's going on, you'll get through it. And we just left it at that. I guess what I'm trying to say with this episode and it's something that I hope that a lot of people take to heart to carry themselves forward as this world is changing rapidly. It may feel like the world has gone even more insane, but let's face the facts. Part of that insanity is the fact that we have just become more well aware of what's actually been going on all this time. And there is a lot less that we can easily distract ourselves with these days to be able to ignore it. Remember that you are not the only one who is going through something. And if you are lucky enough to have love in your life, whether it's relationship, whether it's family, don't completely leave them out. As much as you may want to isolate yourself, don't ever leave that door completely shut. Don't ever barricade. Always leave that door open. Because more often than not, the few that may have the strength and determination to kick it down when something's really going wrong they're finding themselves debating whether or not they should, because they don't want to make things worse than they already are for you. I guess that's a lesson we all need to learn in this life, right? As long as we find ourselves with love, we can push through anything, no matter the mistakes we make. And it's something I've had to learn recently. As long as those connections are still there, there's still always a chance to improve. Because I'm not going to lie to you folks, I felt myself so rattled by what's been going on with me this last little bit that I actually found myself opening up to my mother. Like I've said before in another episode, and even my younger sister is like, Dakota, are you alright? She had a lot of the same worries that I did. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's something I've said over and over again throughout the course of this show. Perhaps the reason why it feels like our struggles, who we are, is unknown is because we have fallen into the traps of the human mind to isolate ourselves. Because when it seemed like there was a storm outside, the first logical thing for us to do in our early ancestral days was seek the nearest shelter and ride things out until the storm went away. Not really taking into consideration that perhaps the storms are still inside us. And we need to ride them out. We've had a few few 100,000 years of practice to understand the outside storms. We've got somewhat of a pretty good grip on that. But we're still doing our best to try to understand the mental storms. But truthfully, as much as we may want to feel like isolating ourselves or entrusting ourselves to robots, AI may find its uses, may have some ways to truly help. But there's a reason why the human race managed to survive as much as it did throughout any ice age or potential extinction level events, through times when other hominids would hunt us down. There's a reason why the modern human survived, and that was our ability to come together. And it's often the very same reason why corrupt individuals try to make it seem like we're all trying to pit ourselves against each other. Because that tribalistic instinct is still within us. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that while there are genuine assholes out there who want to hurt us, there's a hell of a lot more love than hate. It's just that love is sometimes quieter. It's often quieter and can easily be lost in the noise. So take your time to quiet the noise. Even if you gotta blare a little bit of music from time to time, get the rhythm going to help shake everything out of your system. Love is always the answer. It doesn't have to be something out of a Hallmark movie. It doesn't have to involve grand gestures. If you're able to pull them off from time to time for the right people and for the right reasons, awesome. Let those stories carry on. But the true struggles in love are often the parts of the movie that don't get shown. They're clips, they're shown as short little montages. But the true extent of love, of connection, requires work that many of us are trying to supplement through the current AI booms. And I'll admit, AI seems like the next inevitability when it comes to technological advancement, but I don't know. Maybe with the right training, the AI can one day help us out. Understand some patterns a lot quicker than we may be able to handle ourselves. Some of those programs are actually out there. And while they may need a little bit of time and practice to really understand their users, as long as we take those conversations to heart and apply them to where it really matters, to those around us, to our friends, our family, our lovers, hell, maybe even our enemies, we are capable of achieving just about anything, no matter how alone we feel like we have to be. And if your loved ones are in a period of time where they feel like they need to handle something alone, respect that choice. But don't ever let them fully believe that you were ever out of reach. Just check in, see how they're doing, give them a chance to talk if they want to. They may not find the strength to say something, but just knowing that that option is there can do a hell of a lot more good than staying quiet. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like that's a good spot to end this episode. This season, even. And I'll say that because I'm going to be taking a little bit of time to work on a few other projects, get those up and running, see where these personal struggles of mine go to unfold. And maybe, just maybe, by the time you hear these messages again, it won't just be my voice you have to struggle through. My name is Dakota Franson. Much love, take care. I hope to see you all next time. And I hope you enjoyed some of the music I've played along on this episode, because there's going to be a lot more coming. We might just be making an album with all the songs you hear on this and more. Stay tuned. Make sure to follow on Facebook, Twitter, or X, Instagram. And just head over to baldandbonkers.net and you should be able to find everything you need there to figure out where to keep up with all the updates. Much love. Take care. I truly love you all. And we'll see you next time.
We broadcast our thoughts into the ether, hoping someone, somewhere, is listening. But the true cure for this epidemic of isolation isn't just speaking into the void, it's sharing the signal. If this frequency resonated within you, don't let it extinguish in the dark. Follow our journey. Share this message with a world that has forgotten how to listen. I am Dakota Franson. And if you're ready to dig deeper into the echoes we leave behind, visit baldandbonkers.net. That is baldandbonkers.net. Of this, before we vanish back into the static, we must leave our mark. Until next time, keep asking, are we truly unknown?